Hello students, in this video we will be learning about quadratic equations and polynomials and also about their roots and their interpretation. So if you talk about roots of a quadratic equations are nothing but basically the values of x for which it is equal to 0. So let's have a general equation ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0. And let's say x1 and x2 are the roots of this equation. So when I put these values in the equation, it turns out to be equal to 0 and actually states the equation true. So similarly, a quadratic equation always has two roots, and if you look at the graphical representation of that, you just have to think about the graphs of quadratic equations. So these are the various graphs of quadratic equations. Sometimes it can touch the x-axis, sometimes it can intersect the x-axis. So you have to talk about the points where the curve actually touches or intersects the x-axis. Those points are basically the roots of quadratic equation. So if you see here, the curve is actually touching once. So in this case, both roots will be similar and it will be equal to the value that is given at that point. So now that we have understood what are roots, let's try to solve this quadratic equation that we were struggling in the first video. So I have x square plus x minus 12 is equal to 0. So we all know factorization back from previous classes. So I just have to look at the coefficients. So the coefficient of x square, that is plus 1, and the constant term minus 12, the product of them should be equal to two numbers such that when I add them, it should also be equal to plus 1. So I can think of plus 4 and minus 3 as two numbers. When they are multiplied, it is equal to minus 12, and when they are added, it is equal to plus 1. So I split the middle term accordingly, and by that method I can solve these quadratic equation. I can get two values, that is x plus 4 into x minus 3 equal to 0. So when I see two terms getting multiplied and being equated with 0, I see that either one of them could be 0 or both could be 0. So if x plus 4 is equal to 0, x should be equal to minus 4, and if x minus 3 is equal to 0, x should be equal to 3. So since we were talking about apples, the negative values are redundant, so we'll take plus 3 as the measure of apples. So like this, there are various methods through which you can solve quadratic equations. One of the methods that we just did was factorization. The other method that we'll be doing was completing the square method. Then after that, we'll be doing solutions using quadratic formula, and also we'll be using graphs to figure out the roots.